2 weeks ago, tomorrow, began an important time, in fact, a pivotal time in the life of the Eastgate Church of Christ. Shortly after midnight, a storm blew through, causing damage to our church building, damage to several of our members' homes, just causing all sorts of problems. I want to share with you a few pictures of the damage to the church building. Here is perhaps, this to me is the most incredible picture. And you can still see it out there in the back of the parking lot. But the roof blew into this tree, and whereas a bunch of other trees fell down, this tree didn't fall down. Now there's a sermon or an illustration or a bulletin article in there somewhere. And I'll find it and I'll share it with you at some point in the very near future. But that just is incredible that big of a sail being blown by EF2 category tornado winds didn't blow the tree over. But the tree stood firm because of its roots and everything. But anyway, then this is a close-up view of what our fellowship room roof looked like. On Monday morning when we got here, several people got here. Yes, those are 2x4s sticking through the roof. Yes, some of those 2x4s went all the way through and damaged some of the ceiling, and we'll look at one of those damages in just a few moments. But yeah, it was a pretty powerful storm. This is our bus. That is a piece of wood sticking through a piece of metal fender. Okay? Incidentally, in case you are curious as to why the bus is not out in the parking lot, the bus was totaled by the insurance company and it has been taken away, and we can't think of it as losing a bus as much as gaining a handicap parking place in our parking lot. So, here's a little wider view of the damage that was done, and believe it or not, none of this stuff right in here came from our building. It all came from over there, the roof that's on the other, the building on the other side of us, or to the south of us. This is a picture inside the attic of the fellowship room. There is no artificial light being used there, no flash or anything. Normally, if you went up there and took a picture without a flash, it'd be just a dark screen. But on Monday morning, after the storm blew through, there's plenty of light from our new skylights in the fellowship building or room. This is upside down. No, it isn't upside down. I thought, whoa, wait, it's doing tricks on me. This is our carport. This wasn't actually on Monday. This was, I believe, on Wednesday after we'd had a little bit additional rain and everything. But just that little bit of rain caused the carport to fall a little bit more. That gives you, again, an indication of the damage. And then there's this. This is the tree that is blocking this parking lot here. Just so you know, that root ball that you see sticking up sideways, I went out this week and I measured it. And best I can tell you, it is somewhere between 10 and 12 feet from the bottom of that hole to the top of the root structure there. The hole was filled with water, and I didn't really want to get down there and look too closely. But between 10 and 12 feet, this is incredible. This is why you cannot go in the men's restroom in the fellowship hall, because that's what it looks like, because of some of those 2x4s coming through and damaging the ceiling and all. So, the bottom line is that there was some pretty significant damage done. Despite what the local paper said on Wednesday following the storm, where it said that the Eastgate Church of Christ suffered, quote, minor roof damage. Here's the funny part. If you read the article, it sounds like I said that. I'm like, no, that's not what I told you. I said, maybe compared to next door, we had minor roof damage. But we have some very significant damage. And it's going to take some time to get it fixed. Last Sunday, emotions were still somewhat raw. Some of you that were here were seeing the damage, or the cleaned up a little bit damage for the very first time. So I didn't want to dwell too much on it, just to let us have a little bit of time to process everything. Some were surprised that we'd be having services last Sunday, given the damage to the building and everything. Some of our members, I think, thought that we weren't having services based on the number of attendance that we had last week. But we did, and anyway, as a guy who was interviewed last Sunday morning by 4029 News said, quote, "It was very important that we meet together here for the sake of normalcy. Coming together in this place on Sunday morning is just what we do." Wise guy said that, a very wise guy. But as I said, Monday morning ushered in a pivotal time for us as a congregation. This congregation has dealt with upsetting events in the past. A lot of times caused by one person or a group of people or things of that nature, and those people have ultimately left, and we've been able to go back and resume things as normally as possible after some of the damage that was caused. But this wasn't caused by a person. In fact, some would even say that this was caused by an act of God. So if it was an act of God, what should our feelings be? What should our response be to this? Our building was damaged significantly. Was God trying to send us a message? I believe that in the storm, God had a hand, and that God has a plan. God had a hand in what happened, and God has a plan for what happened. Actually, if you look at the book of Job, which I guess you might say ironically we are doing on Wednesday nights in our adult class, you'll find that God wasn't behind Job's losses, but that Satan was the instigator. So what does that mean for us? What I believe that means is that our congregation is on the brink of something incredible. I believe that our congregation is on the brink of doing something so incredibly amazing for God that we can't even begin to imagine how wonderful and how mightily God is going to use us. And guess who doesn't like it? When God uses people to bring glory to Him. And so, and I'm just spitballing here, and this may or may not have happened. That is pure speculation on my part. But I guess studying the book of Job on Wednesday nights has sort of influenced this idea. But perhaps, just perhaps, there was a day a couple of weeks ago where God may have been talking with Satan about the plans that he had for the Eastgate Church of Christ. And perhaps, just perhaps, I'm speculating here. I don't know anything that's top secret or behind the scenes or anything like that. Perhaps, just perhaps, Satan said, well, let's just see what happens if. So what's our response to this time of testing? How do we cope with this time of testing? For me, I am thankful. I am thankful. 1 Thessalonians 5:16 through 18 tells us this: "Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you." If you look at Ephesians 5:18 through 21, Paul writes, "And do not get drunk with wine, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit, addressing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody to the Lord with all your heart, giving thanks always and for everything to God the Father in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ." Give thanks always. Always, no matter the circumstances. You know, November is the month that we celebrate Thanksgiving Day. Well, today I challenge you not just to celebrate Thanksgiving Day on November 28th of this month, but make November Thanksgiving month. And that's what we're going to do with our Sunday morning sermons throughout the month of November, is we're going to talk about reasons to be thankful. And we're not going to look at the easy reasons. You know, it'd be easy to have a 4-week series of lessons on reasons to be thankful and talk about all the happy, good stuff that we have and everything. But over the next month or so, I want us to look at reasons to be thankful and things that we aren't necessarily traditionally thankful for. We're going to talk about being thankful for things like trials. We're going to be talking about things to be thankful for like thorns. We're going to talk about being thankful for things such as weaknesses. And today, we're going to talk about being thankful even in storms. I want to share with you some of the things that I'm thankful for as it relates to the early morning hours of October 21st, 2019. And then I also want to share with you one of the many lessons that I learned in the aftermath. So let's start by talking about things that I am thankful for. One thing I'm thankful for is I'm thankful for the timing of the storm. Now, I said, now wait a second, what does that have to do with anything? Well, it has a lot, actually, if you think about it. See, the storm blew through shortly after midnight. Shortly after midnight, nobody was at the church building. So if nobody was at the church building, there couldn't have been mass injuries or even casualties, because nobody was here. Just the building was damaged. Now let's play a little game of what if. What if it had been 6 hours earlier? What if it had been around 6 p.m. on October 20th, 2019? Well, let's see. At 6 p.m., we would have just been finishing up our Sunday evening services. On that particular Sunday night, there were 49 people here. So 49 people would have either been in the church building, in this part of the church building, we could say thankfully, or they would have been in their cars driving home. 49 people. You remember that picture of the bus that I showed you? That was just one small part of the damage. If you looked at the entirety of the bus, you would know that a car or a vehicle is not where you want to be in a storm like this. Besides the fact that if you weren't in your car or vehicle, if we had warning and everybody had stayed here, those 49 people probably wouldn't have vehicles today, because they would have either been blown away or the roof from next door would have landed on top of them, causing damage to their vehicles, making them undrivable. So I'm thankful for the timing of the storm, because it minimized the chance that there would be a lot of people getting hurt here anyway. I'm also thankful for the quote-unquote minor damage. You know, only part of the building saw significant damage. Now, that's despite, again, what the newspaper said, and I know the newspaper is always right and never makes mistakes, you know, especially on people's names. Like, you know, so, yeah, anyway, but The entire roof has to be replaced. Now, you might say, wait, that's not part of the building. That's over the whole building. And yes, that's true. It's over the whole building. I understand that. But the entire roof needs to be replaced or repaired. There are 6 huge trees around our property that are going to have to be removed. One of them has been removed that fell in the shed out there. It's already been taken off of that so that repairs on the shed can begin. But there's others that are out here that we have to deal with. Very significant damage to parts of our building and to parts of our property. Some part of the building saw some damage or a little bit of damage. The bathrooms by the fellowship hall, showed you the picture of the men's. The ladies has some light, some water in the light fixtures and things of that nature. The clothing room office, I guess, or workroom, whatever they call it down there, looks kind of sort of like the men's bathroom, same sort of situation and everything. There, we've discovered some leaks in classrooms that we've seen some leaks here in the auditorium. If you look over here, that yellowish, brownish stuff is not supposed to be there. There's a little bit of damage and everywhere, but by and large, the building is still structurally sound. Not by and large, it is still structurally sound. You don't have to be nervous about being in here. We don't have to tear it down and build a new building and things of that nature. So for the quote-unquote minor damage, we can be thankful. We can be. Some people say, well, the funny part is that over here in this atrium area, the roof always leaks whenever it rains. It didn't leak this time. I mean, we could have got it fixed. But anyway, that maybe tempers a little bit of our thankfulness. But the point is, we can be thankful that we still have a place to assemble, still have a place to meet together. One other item that I'm thankful for is the Classical Conversations community. I say, the who? What are you talking about? Who are they? Well, the Classical Conversations community is the homeschool group that meets in our buildings on Tuesday for their time when they get together and learn in a classroom type setting. We have nobody that is affiliated with them. They had sent us an email earlier this summer looking for a place to meet on Tuesdays, and we had just enough classrooms for them, and it's working out great. But they come every Tuesday, but they had taken the previous Tuesday off. It was fall break or something to that effect. And I said, so, okay, great. So they use our building. What did they do that's so great that we're thankful for? Well, on Monday, I texted some pictures to the lady that's in charge of the group and everything. And I told her, y'all probably want to take another fall break this week because we don't have any electricity and probably won't have electricity by tomorrow. No sooner had I put my phone in my pocket than she texted me back. And she didn't text back, well, that's just too bad. Okay, we'll see you in a week or whatever. She texted me back with, oh no, what can we do to help? It's not their building. But she's always asking what she can do to help. Sky will attest that. She's always saying, what can we do? How can we help the church out here any? So, talked to some folks and, again, her response was immediate. We want to help. So we decide, well, okay, they can pick up some of the small debris that's everywhere, particularly in the parking lot. And so on Tuesday, instead of staying at home and instead of doing their schoolwork, they came to our church building and they picked up small debris from the parking lot and from the field that's in the back there and everything. Some of the stuff they picked up wasn't so small. Some of the boys, They had to show off for the girls. They were carrying stuff that was way too big for them to be carrying. And, and on a few instances, I saw like 3 of them carrying something that was really big. I finally had to tell them, okay, y'all, if it's bigger than you are, don't pick it up. But they cleaned up that area, and they picked up some small debris. They swept a good portion of the parking lot. This is what the parking lot looked like in part. Yes, some of that stuff is fiberglass, which wouldn't do anything to you. Some of the stuff you can see is some pretty big stuff and everything. But included in all of that debris in the parking lot are some things that you can't see. Screws, nails, small pieces of wood, all of which were just looking for a place to call home in someone's tire. But they swept the parking lot. They took care of things for it. They made sure that all of the nails and screws and things were picked up. And I haven't heard of anyone that's had a flat tire as a result of driving in our parking lot. And that's important. And other groups, though, not just Classical Conversations, but other groups also, and individuals asked how they could help. Some called my cell phone. Some sent emails, which was kind of weird because we didn't get those until we had telephone service a week later. But some of those emails. They were offering to bring food to us for those who were working cleaning up, which probably would have been good to have the week before, but nonetheless, we didn't get it till then, and I thank them for that. Some individuals stopped by just to ask what they could do. Now, some of them wanted us to hire them to do some stuff, but some just wanted to help. In fact, I stopped at the post office today, and either on Friday or yesterday, the church was mailed an envelope, and in that envelope was a nice little letter from some people who said, we drove by your church building, and it looks like you had some significant storm damage, and here's $100 to help toward your insurance deductible. They don't go to church here, but they're some nice people. We're going to send them a nice letter of thank you. We really are. But that's just something that the school group helped us clean up our parking lot. I'm also thankful for the church community. I received messages from several area congregations. They were asking how they could help us, if we needed some help with manpower coming over to help clean up the building and things of that nature. And I thanked them for that. Said, I think we pretty much got it all under control. At this point, we just need to let the professionals do the rest. But they said, okay, well, just keep us in mind if something comes up later that you weren't anticipating, and we're still willing to help. Many of them let me know that they were praying for our congregation, which is the best possible help that they could provide, which I hope that they will continue to do. There's one more thing I want to tell you that I'm thankful for, and I was struggling with how to phrase this, okay? I've got "the" at the start of all the main points here, so I came up with phrasing it this way. I am thankful for the Lynn and the Curtis. Lynn and Curtis have agreed to oversee the restoration process. They are our primary contacts for the insurance. They are our primary contacts for our contractor and subcontractors, which, by the way, I told you earlier, God had a hand and God has a plan. Well, our contractor is evidence of that. Apparently, back in the early to mid-'80s, there was a family that moved in here with a high school senior named Keith Almond. And his brother somehow lives still in the area or something and took a picture of the building to our south and sent it to Keith. But in the background of the building to our south was our building. And so he somehow managed to figure out what Art's phone number was. And he called Art. And by Monday afternoon, he was here helping us figure out what we needed to do and things of that nature. And that's just, there obviously was something besides blind luck involved in that, I think. But anyway, that just clearly shows that God had a hand and God has a plan. And they are doing the job, Lynn and Curtis are. They're doing the job that under most circumstances in most churches I would be forced to do. And I don't have a clue as to how to do any of what they're doing. But Lynn and Curtis do know what they are doing. They really do. They have experience with building and maintaining things. But quite honestly, I really don't have to tell y'all any of this, do I? Because you know. You know, and they're maybe blushing right now, but I am thankful for Lynn and for Curtis and for their willingness to help in this regard. There are many other things that I could add to this list. Was the storm good? No. But we are told in 1 Thessalonians 5:18 and Ephesians 5:20 to give thanks in all circumstances and to give thanks to God always and for everything. This includes giving thanks in the storms that we face. But there is one other thing I want to tell you that I'm thankful for, and that what I'm thankful for is the lessons that I learned in the aftermath. One particular lesson that I learned in the aftermath has to do with about utilities. You don't really think about utilities very often, do you? I mean, electricity, the telephone, internet. You just assume that they're always there, right? I mean, you walk into a room that's dark, you turn on the switch, and the light comes on. All that week, I walked into my office, it was dark, I flipped the switch, and no light came on. It just didn't. And then finally, I think it was Thursday, the light came on, and I was excited about that. So anyway, but and then but when they're not there for an extended period of time, and you have to do without those utilities, you start to realize what a true blessing they really are. It makes you thankful that you didn't live back in the pioneer days when they didn't have electricity. Honestly, I don't think I could have cut it as a preacher or even living pre-electricity. And I'd say, well, but if you never had it, you don't know what you're missing, so it wouldn't be. Maybe so, but I wouldn't want to try, okay? I'm thankful for the lessons I learned about utilities. But there's a more important application. Now, utilities, you don't really think about them until you do without them. What about God? Sometimes we don't think too much about God. We just assume that He's always going to be there. We just assume that He's like that light switch. We flip the switch and He's there. Then when we leave, we can turn the switch off and He'll be just waiting for us when we come back. We just assume that He's always going to be there for us. When we need Him, we turn to Him. But what if He wasn't there? What if a storm came in and broke the lines of communication between Him and us? Now, yes, I know it can't really happen because it's prayer and the Word, but go with me here, okay? Not a physical storm, but an emotional storm that maybe disrupted your communication with Him. Even for the briefest of moments. That Monday morning early at our house, the electricity went off for about like that. But what would happen if He forgot us? What would happen if He turned His back just for that long? What would happen is that breath of air that you just took into your lungs, it wouldn't have been there. if he had forgotten us. Yet sometimes it takes a storm to get us to focus on him, to get us to understand that he is there for us and that he is in control of everything. In Colossians chapter 3, verses 15 through 17, Paul has this to say: "And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. And whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him." Now, not everything that we experience in life is all rainbows and sunshine. Not everything that we experience in life is all happy places. You know, it's easy to be thankful when things are going good for us. It's easy to be thankful when everything is fine and there's no storms in our lives. But you know what? We're going to experience storms. We're going to experience storms in our lives. Some of them are literal storms. Some of them are, well, figurative storms, but they are nonetheless real. Those emotional storms, those other types of storms that aren't actual storms, but they're storms that disrupt our lives. Yeah, we're going to experience those. And we need to be thankful, even in storms. Look again at Colossians 3:17. "And whatever you do, in word or in deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him." So what's your response to the storms that you face in your life? How do you respond when things don't always just go exactly your way? Fuss and fret? Or do you give thanks? It's a decision that we have to make. We choose how we respond to situations. I pray that you will choose to be thankful for this opportunity that God has presented to us. Opportunity, yeah. He's presented us with an opportunity. I'm not for sure or certain what that opportunity is, but I know God had a hand and God has a plan. Are you fulfilling his plan for your life? It starts by giving your life to him. It starts by being immersed in the watery grave of baptism, having your sins washed away. If you haven't done that, then what are you waiting for? Or maybe you did make that commitment, but you haven't really been living up to it. You haven't been doing the things that you know you should do. You haven't maybe been giving thanks to God in all circumstances and for everything. That needs to change. Maybe that change needs to be a public response, asking this church body to pray with you and to pray for you. Or maybe that change needs to be a private response where it's just between you and God, and you say, "God, I need to change and I want to change. Please help me to change. Help me to be more thankful, even in the storms of life." Or maybe it's a semi-private response, we might say. Maybe you need to find somebody that you trust in the congregation and say, "Hey, after services, meet with them and say, 'Hey, will you just pray with me now, and then keep me in your thoughts and your prayers throughout this week, because I'm struggling.'" Whatever that situation is, don't hesitate to make that response. If we can help you, though, through a public response to make things right between you and God, won't you come to the front now as we stand and sing together?